Okay. One Piece chapter 1093. So I'm gonna keep it real. I'm a little disappointed that the Luffy versus Kizaru fight, especially because like the title's like Luffy versus Kizaru. I'm a little disappointed that the fight is as short as it is. However, I do see what Oda's doing here. Like the foreshadowing's in there where like you got one of the Vegapunk's Atlas saying, well, I can go down there and I can give new orders to the pacifists and we can change the Titan battle. And you're going, okay, this makes sense. And then that closing shot where you got Saturn there and Saturn is just shown kind of thinking things over right when Atlas is saying that there are new orders for the pacifists to start wiping out all the Navy people. That's where you go, wait a second, Atlas is one of those 5 elders, if I'm not mistaken. It's like Atlas could override their orders. That makes sense why he's there now. I was wondering what the fuck they brought this dude around for, because at first I'm like, that makes no sense. Why would you have somebody like this accompanying Kizaru? Now it makes sense. Just on the off chance that Vegapunk was actually able to cook up something crazy, you got somebody with an authority level higher than him. That's interesting. I see what Oda's doing here. We're going to see but Saturn get involved in something soon. Atlas is essentially cracking the door open for Saturn to walk through. I see what Oda's doing, man. Now, backing things up though, the chapter itself opens up where you got Luffy. He's got this big old grin on his face. He's got his hands on Kizaru. Kizaru's like, hey, wait a second. This ain't no good, man. Let us not get carried away. You see him trying to talk his way out of it for a second. Luffy just starts spinning this dude around. He sends him flying. And as that's happening, you got Usopp saying, okay, good. Let's make a run for it while Luffy's holding on Kizaru. Smart plan of action right there. And that's where you have Atlas saying, okay, well, here's the thing. I'm going to go down below. I'm going to take control of the pacifists again. Otherwise, they'll shoot us down as soon as the barrier has been lifted. You see that they're trying to get their escape plan actually plotted out. And Vegapunk takes a step further. Vegapunk says, well, whoever has authority over the pacifists, they're going to be the ones that win. For that reason, I'm going to go with you as well. And you get these status updates where Vegapunk is kind of chastising Franky for letting Bonney get away. At the same time, he's giving some orders to Lilith at this point. And then you got Sanji, and he's with Jinbe, and Sanji's like, hey, Vegapunk, we got that luggage, quote-unquote luggage that you're looking for. And he's like, well, I'm going to go save Bonney at this point because she needs to be saved. And Bonnie's in hot water as well because you see the different people in the Navy, and they're all shouting out like, hey, be on the lookout. She'll de-age you. You got one person walking around holding a gun, look like they're probably about 3-4 years old at this point. One guy's super old. Bonney is battle damaged. She's trying to hide. She's taking look over the situation. She sees that Sentomaru has been burned to a crisp, and you can tell for a moment she's thinking maybe I can go out there and I can save him. But at the same time, she's like, I need to stay where I'm at just on the off chance that all this will blow over. And as this is going on, you got Zoro. Zoro simply swapping blows, going 3 swords against Rob Lucci, and Rob Lucci is getting worked. And what I like about this is that you're seeing some respect on Zoro's name. Because, this Rob Lucci is strong. And Zoro's more than holding him off. And he even goes as far as to say, dude, if you can't even beat me, what even makes you think that you stood a chance against our captain? And it does make you wonder, is Rob Lucci going all out? I tend to say that I think he is, because he's in that transformed state. And then also, he says it himself, the number 2 to an Emperor of the Sea, that's a really big bounty. That's a really big, actually, head to try and take off. So you can see that, Rob Lucci's putting it out there, but the fact that Zoro hasn't really used his full power either, it does kind of open up the stage of okay, Zoro's clearly ascended to a higher plane. That's why I wanted to see exactly how Zoro did against Rob Lucci, because we saw how Luffy was able to handle him off, and now you see what Zoro's doing. I get it, Rob Lucci did take some heavy damage when he fought against Luffy, but the fact that Zoro is this relaxed, you can start seeing more of that hierarchy with the Straw Hats actually coming into play. And then meanwhile, you shift over and Kizaru is falling towards the water, and you're like, okay, he's gonna fall into the ocean. Admiral down. However, Kizaru is able to essentially fly back up. And when he makes all these doppelgangers of himself, Luffy, comedic fashion, eyes popping out of his head while he's in Gear 5. He's like, oh, there's so many of them. And Luffy begins to start battling. And then Luffy immediately just takes off running. And he's like, oh, which one's the real one? and then we find out that Luffy's actually lured him into a trap. However, what Luffy doesn't get is that Kizaru's actually trapped himself, because Luffy is fighting those doppelgangers while the real Kizaru is down below. He's got his hands on Usopp, and Luffy's like, oh my god, he tricked me, and you can tell Luffy's getting ready to start descending. However, Atlas is taking off, Vegapunk is taking off, Luffy's screaming for Vegapunk like, dude, you need to stay hidden, don't you get it? They're getting ready to try and kill you. And you have this moment where Kizaru is able to clock that Vegapunk is running off. He's like, where do you think you're going right now? You didn't really think that you're gonna get off of this island alive, did you? And he gets ready to fire off one of those light beams. Luffy ends up taking the attack, and you get more of the comedic fashion. Like, Luffy takes the attack that would have killed a normal person. He's like, oh my god, my eyes are burning. And you see again more of that growth with Luffy, and you can kind of say like that claim of like, I'm 100 times stronger than I was before. There's definitely some validity there. Now, obviously, this Luffy versus Kizaru fight, that's going to continue. We're not anywhere near the ending of that. I did open up by saying I was a little disappointed that it was so short, simply because when it opened up, their exchange was short, and then we kind of tapered off, and now we're getting right back into it. And I do think that it was important to see that, simply for the fact that we're getting the opportunity to see that Kizaru has a few bags of tricks that he can actually get into as well. And given the unpredictable fighting style of Luffy, and the way that basically that Gear 5 of his allows him to basically have infinite imagination in terms of what it is that he's actually capable of doing, it does kind of open up the door for this to be a really extended sequence. But as they're fighting, and you got Atlas trying to give out these orders, we end off with that shot of Saturn, and I kind of stand by it. I do feel like that's where Vegapunk and all of them are going to learn that Saturn's there, the Straw Hat's going to get brought up to speed on the 5 Elders. And if you're Saturn, just given the orders that are on there, you can kind of see him basically saying like, you know, go back to doing what you were doing before, or destroy everybody. You can tell like the Straw Hats are really in for it, because they're basically getting ready to do another Buster Call. And this is one of those things where for Nico Robin, I'm a little hurt for, because that's going to be another level of trauma to see something like this. And yet at the same time, we get that big tease of that ancient weapon look like it's resonating with Luffy. And there was nothing that came of that at the time. And now one of the elders are there, and you can tell like Oda's probably gonna flip the switch, and the pacifists are gonna go right back to doing what they're doing before. That's where we're probably gonna have this weapon that gets brought back into the picture. It's just a matter of seeing how Oda's actually able to get us there in terms of connecting the dots. Let's see my chapter question, you guys. When you guys got to this part of the story, what did you think that Saturn's next move was actually gonna be? I personally think that this is where he takes control of the pacifists, because there's no reason for Oda to continuously show us like through the last few chapters where you see like the hierarchy for the authority chips, if there was not going to be a moment where one of those 5 elders end up taking control. However, that's just my thoughts on it though. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.